Army veteran Don Gbaanador talks about his West African consulting company. Coming up next on episode 138 of Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that JOB trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
Have you checked out the Veteran on the Move YouTube channel? In addition to listening to any podcast episode, you can join our live stream. I'm starting a new project soon, and you can watch us live on YouTube as I walk a soon-to-be veteran through his transition out of the military over the next year. Join us live as we take this veteran through the transition process and into the civilian sector. Also, these live streams will be archived on the Veteran on the Move YouTube channel to watch if you can't make it for the live airing. Make sure you subscribe to the Veteran on the Move YouTube channel, and you will be notified when we go live with our new project on transition. The top 7 paths to freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com, or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470. Don Gbaanador left active duty in May of 2016 to start a West African economic development consulting firm. Don is a 2010 U.S. Military Academy graduate, grew up in Texas, and was stationed in Germany, Oklahoma, and the D.C. area as an artillery officer. All right, Don Gbaanador, welcome to the show, Veteran on the Move. Thanks for being here and sharing your entrepreneurial story.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually before we get to talking about business and entrepreneurship, especially since you're military like most of the guests, I like to go back a little ways and share with everybody what your background is and what you did in the military.
Sure. So I went to the academy. I picked artillery as my branch. Most of the guys on the football team did that. So I was like, hey, I'll try that out. So that was fun. Went to Oklahoma for BOLIC, then Ranger Airborne School. Then my first duty station was Germany. So got to Germany. My unit had deployed. So I was on Rudy for a little bit. And then I actually got to deploy. We're in Ghazni province, did some good work there. So that was a good experience. Then I came back, stationed back in Oklahoma, then Arizona. And then my last assignment was in the D.C. area.
Okay, great. So is that a common thing that everybody on the football team goes artillery, or is that just different with each class?
Yeah. So FA, that's the acronym for artillery. It's called football alumni. So, on the team, they're like, hey, because some of the guys, the bigger guys, the linemen and whatnot, it's a good job for them. So it's fun.
That's hilarious. I never realized that. I would think they'd like all go infantry or something. I mean, what's the appeal with artillery and the football team?
There's more guys going infantry now. So around the time I was a freshman, it was primarily, field artillery and ADA, and there was a few infantry, but it's changing now. And I think that's because of the new coach we have and the different coaches that were there too. That really pushed the infantry side. So the younger guys, a lot of them are going infantry, which is good. There's a few guys in Ranger Battalion and some great stuff. So.
All right. So you didn't get out of the Army all that long ago, 2016, or was it 2016?
Yeah,
okay.
This year it was May. It was May this year, actually. So I
got 6 months or so.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of a water hose to the face, but it's a lot, and there's so many people out there to help and that you can leverage. Thousands of people that are encouraged for your service as a veteran, and it will help you out. So that's really good.
All right. So walk us through a little bit of your transition. As you got out of the Army and you decided to get into consulting in West Africa, that kind of thing. So just walk us through that and maybe your mental process of why did you not go get a JOB and how you went this route.
Just like a lot of people, we sit back and maybe have a beer or something. It's like, oh, we should do this or maybe start that. And I'd take notes and whatnot. But I worked in the Pentagon as my last assignment, and I noticed there's a large knowledge gap when it comes to Africa. It's a ginormous continent, so many countries. And I'm half Nigerian, half Panamanian, so I have background. I speak the language and whatnot, so I know a little bit about at least parts of Nigeria. And I know AFRICOM is gaining interest in West Africa. And I met another guy that was working there in the area, Fort Belvoir and whatnot, and he was thinking the same thing. And we're like, hey, let's start a company. We don't know how to do it yet, but let's start it and we'll figure it out. And we know there's a lot of goodness if we have a U.S. company that's pretty knowledgeable on how West Africa, things like that. So that was kind of the idea. And we just started the company. And then, a few months later, I dropped my packet, talked to my chain of command. And I was a little nervous at first because, it was a great job. I loved working there. But the idea was if we can work on something for, 10, 15 years, it could be really goodness for both West Africa and for the United States. So my colonel, it was great. He's like, go ahead, go charge forward. Luckily, I got to work with Bunker Labs. I don't know if have you heard of Bunker Labs, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, the last couple episodes we've been talking about Bunker Labs. Michael Penny is a Marine veteran, and he just took over as the director of Bunker Labs in Raleigh, Durham. So we talked a little bit about it on his interview. Great program.
Yes, amazing resource. I was actually at the Army-Navy game, and I met a guy. He's a West Pointer, graduated a couple years ahead of me. And he just graduated from Bunker Labs, and he started this company in Chicago. And I was like, oh my goodness, let me look this up. So I looked it up. Great resource, amazing directors and people that you can talk to and learn. And if you're selected for the internship, that's a great experience as well. And also just talking to other veterans, and bouncing ideas off one another. And usually that's how you come up with the ideal solution. So great experience. So yeah, went through the Bunker Labs. That was kind of as I was transitioning. So I was doing the ACAT process as well as the Bunker Lab, so it worked out pretty well for me at that time.
Okay, so now can you get a little bit into your West African consulting business, and like initially, what did you think you guys were going to be doing, and has it turned out that that's actually what you're doing, or where are you at on that?
Yeah, so the idea was, Booz Allen. I've never worked for Booz, but I really like how they're a consulting firm, right? But there's a lot of things they go into for development, for security, for all types of different work. And so that's what we were hoping, if we start off now, work with some clients, learn about the area, we could hopefully build a small type of Booz Allen entity maybe 10 years from now. And so that led us to doing our feasibility studies for about 10 weeks. We were in different parts of Nigeria. That's where we want to start our focus for the first couple of years, because that's in terms of networks and relationships, that's where we have most leverage. And just digging down, talking to different people everywhere from field grade, general officers to companies, institutions, public officials, things like that. Just find what are the gaps, because the worst thing we want to do is make this great, U.S. company that gets things done, but it has to be received by, the needs of the people in West Africa. So that's kind of what we did. I got back a couple weeks ago. We're talking to different people. I'm actually in Chicago right now. So it's been a wild ride, and I'm learning a lot. But there's so many people, and talking to the veteran community. Just going to a different country, immediate fraternity is veterans. Yeah. Our states, our political leaders tell us at times to engage in armed conflict and things like that. But you go to, I don't know, for example, in Nigeria, and we're meeting veterans, and they're like, hey, they're ready to help you, and it's already a trusted community. So it's a worldwide network that we have as veterans, and people admire the sacrifices that we've made.
Now, as far as the veteran connection there, are you talking you're dealing with other U.S. military veterans or
U.S. military veterans, South African veterans, the French veterans, actual like Nigerian, Ghanaian, but people that have served that have had that similar experience off the bat. There's already this trust capital that you can tap into, and people can help you, and it's great. And I think we're going to see a greater trend of veterans going, international too, and because there's so many gaps out there that we can support with. So
now I know some guys that have gotten involved in some consulting companies that have been doing work over there, and even in Iraq and some Afghanistan stuff. But especially Iraq, a few years ago, the security situation started deteriorating as ISIS was coming on the playing field, and the whole thing kind of shut down. There was a company, Check 6 is still doing other things at the time, but the folks I know that were involved in Check 6, they're not with him anymore because of the changing security situation. When you've been over there, have you found out, it's different when you're in a foreign country, even in a hostile situation, and you're surrounded by friendly military forces that you can call in close air support on the radio or whatever you need, and now you're walking around maybe in a coat and tie or a Bahama shirt trying to blend in, and you're like, I'm on my own here. So have you
It's true.
What's that all about? What's that like?
No, it's true. The transition, I don't think it's something, we allot maybe a couple weeks institutionally to address transition, but it takes some time. I think just as a veteran, that's important to understand. It may take months, if not a couple years. Every time I see like a service member uniform, it just, it's like, wow, I have so much respect for him or her and what they're doing. But being in a third world country, yeah, you're right. Like I'm thinking, if the risk profile of this certain area is a little higher, naturally as a veteran, you're like, okay, you're good. You got your boys, everything's okay. But so that takes a little getting used to. And there's so many good people in the region that are just warm-hearted, and you gain their trust, and they'll do anything to help protect you. So that's not as much an issue. And as a consulting firm, that's not really entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurs like a grand idea, like something that's great to disrupt and things like that. That's a goal. But what we're trying to do is, advance peace and security, and it's that happy medium of, yes, security is important, and we need to understand the environment and how to neutralize threats, but also peace. Like, how do you promote peace? How do you have economic stability? Some of these threats, if they had job opportunity or access, maybe they wouldn't pick up an AK and be doing something crazy. So that's what we're trying to find, to that balance where we're pushing for economic development, but also having a good understanding of security. So that's the space we're trying to find a good niche at.
Now, is it realistic to say that you're not necessarily your main customer, but your main source of funding, is that going to come from the U.S. government as contractors, or is there actually opportunity from Nigeria or other countries to pay for your work?
Yeah, so we're looking at different types of contracts. Yes, primarily U.S. government has different vehicles and stuff to support this type of work for economic through USAID and things like that. But also, we're talking to Nigerian public officials, ones that are a little more progressive, because there's an appetite for corruption when you're in a state where it's difficult to have access to public services, whether it's power or housing or rule of law, things like that. So some of these officials, when they get in seats, and it's almost like, okay, I've arrived, okay, I have an opportunity, and so that's where you have situations where corruption can thrive and occur. But the new President Buhari, has done a great job of really pushing this anti-corruption platform. Some people argue it's one-sided, but it's a step in the right direction. And I think increasingly you'll see a lot more progress. Ghana's done good progress, but Nigeria's along the way. They're currently in a recession, so that's a different situation. But and we have Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which many, if not most countries, if not all countries, don't have. So we kind of set the standard. So there's a lot of clients in terms of private and public African or West African clients that want to work with U.S. companies, and so we're trying to find that good balance.
So are you able to say, like, what is your sweet spot as far as your meat and potatoes here on what exactly you're doing? Are you basically just going to be providing security, or you mostly human, not necessarily human intelligence, but human terrain mapping, or just building relationships?
So the three things that we push are political dynamics, cultural context, and risk mitigation. So political dynamics, that's more like B2B, B2G, business to government. So government contracts, whether it be from U.S. government or, let's say the Nigerian government wants to push training and they want to have X number of people trained. They want them to train in D.C., things like that. The cultural context, that's more helping go-to-market analysis, geopolitical analysis, that's helping U.S. companies or Western companies that are interested in entering the Nigerian market or West African market, helping them de-risk the profile, work with vendors that are credible, things like that. And risk mitigation, that's more like security and training. So we're talking to some NGOs and other companies that need duty of care or things like that. Basic training, not basic training, but like training in terms of like there's defensive driving training, there's hostile environment, things like that. Just understanding that when they're in this environment, like in the northern part of Nigeria, where there's some threat with Boko Haram, making sure they're prepared for their work. So facilitating that. So that's kind of what we're pushing right now.
So you're there and fairly well established, and if some new company comes in and needs to get some information on the security landscape and all that, that's the kind of services you would provide to maybe the new guys in town?
Yes, the new guys. And so what happens a lot of times with these contracts from, not just the United States, but the UK and Australia, Canada, different countries, there'll be 3 to 5 year projects. A company goes in, established, and those first few months are pretty difficult, especially if it's a new area. And so helping with that, and also just being the long-term entity that's a trusted entity that you can trust to work on things to support your operations. So that's kind of the angle that we're finding.
Okay. And do you find that U.S. military experience, obviously speaking the language probably helps, but being a U.S. Experienced U.S. military individual, both of you and your partner, does that actually give you credibility with the locals in many ways, or do you find that they're somewhat intimidated, or there's some type of negative effect as a result of that?
I wouldn't say negative effect. I think in Nigeria, and maybe I can't say for West Africa at large because we're not in too many countries right now, but you're received well as an American. They love Americans. However, there's interest. So what are your interests? What are you here for? Are you here to help us? Are you here just for a couple of years? Are you here to make a quick buck? Because there's a lot of, they call them parachuters, I guess, not so much Americans, but, Westerners that will come in and just do a little project, a little business, do good, maybe real estate or something, flip it, and then just disappear. And the sentiment there is like, they would like American companies and American entities to be there long term. And there's a lot of, there's a few ones I was at, Domino's and Subway, going to like Froyo, different things like that. And they enjoy that, having that little piece of America here at home with them, because many of them have traveled, So that's kind of, you're received well. But what's your interest? Are you here just to make a quick buck, or you really want to be a part of progressing the region?
And what is the main draw to business in Nigeria? Is oil a big factor with it?
Yeah, surprisingly, which I think is good. That's been the primary interest and focus economically for the government, both, primarily the federal government and how that works. And now with the recession, because of the oil bunkering and things like that, the different attacks in the southern part of the country, they're having to, I wouldn't say pivot, but diversify and look into agriculture and other type of streams to bolster their economy. So I think it's a plus, because that helps with geopolitical issues where, the North may have one sentiment, the South may have one sentiment, but when you diversify, that brings a lot more players and people into the economy, and it's not just focusing on one particular sector. So, but yes, there's a huge interest, as I think it's the 8th oil producing state in the world. So oil and gas is a pretty big business there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back a little bit to the bunker, because I wanted to get a little more detail on the bunker and what they do. So did you take this business idea that you're executing right now, did you take that through the bunker process?
Yes. And it was good because, just going from military to entrepreneur full time is definitely not an easy transition. So the bunker kind of helps you for one. They offer this service to companies from 0 to 5 years. So there are companies in there that are multi-million-dollar companies that are doing really well. There are companies that are getting a lot of traction. They just wanted to pivot to get to a better sweet spot. Some that are looking to improve their niche. So there are different companies at varying stages of growth. And for us, it was like we have this big idea. It's difficult, a little difficult. We're the only international company, there. It's not a tech company. It's a old school, traditional brick and mortar type company. But so what they provide is these are some of the pitfalls that a lot of companies encounter. Okay, let me stress test your business model. Okay, and just asking those, different questions to help improve that you wouldn't get otherwise. You're not just when you're engaging clients or customers, they're not going to give you this stuff. And just, how to see your business, how to view it, the strategy, all types of things. Really good courses. They brought in guest speakers to talk to us. And for me, a lot of the value came in just talking to other veterans and learning, I helped them a little bit with their company. They're showing me areas I kind of ignored, or, hey, I know this guy or gal in Ghana or things like that. And that was really good.
Now, did you ever experience, maybe let me ask you first, Had you ever considered yourself to be an entrepreneur like years before this happened?
I thought of it, but I just knew I'd do it some point in the future. I haven't been to business school. I haven't done all these things that I thought, these are the prerequisites to being a good entrepreneur. And then I decided, just got to pull a trigger. You got to fail fast and pull a trigger. And even if there's only one or two, people that are listening to this, that this, resonates with, you have to just be you. And if you have that itch, just you gotta figure it out. And if that means you're gonna fail, that means you're gonna fail. You have to embrace it and drive on. And I just figured, let me just learn, let me pull this trigger. And there's a good chance with a good team, we have a solid team, and a lot of people that have helped us as well, that we can make this thing do pretty well. And so that's just the message I want to push to anyone that's listening. This is veteran. If you have that itch, you have that little book with these great ideas, and one day you're gonna do it. Do some research. It's not like an overnight thing. It took me maybe 6 months to plan and decide that I wanted to leave the service, which, I don't regret a single day. And I loved every second that I was serving. But you just got to do it, and it comes at different times. There's different seasons in life. But I think as a veteran, like they teach us, and, we try to be true to ourselves. And if you have that itch, just like you had, Joe, and many of the people that you've had on this podcast, you just got to do it. And you will eventually. And the earlier that you can do it, you can get some of the silly mistakes, that I've made plenty of dumb mistakes, but that's just part of it,
Sure. And like what I was getting at was, I was active duty for 8 years. I got out and was in the reserves, and then I'm going to go back on active duty. And so I'd kind of been back and forth, and I got this entrepreneurial bug, years ago, and it was kind of brewing and festering, and had a few little side hustles going for many years while I was on active duty. But I always kind of felt like I was alone, because most of your military brethren aren't sitting around talking about entrepreneurs starting their own business. Typically, we're busy. We got a mission to accomplish and all that. So it's understandable. But I was wondering, like the first time you were at the bunker and you were surrounded, obviously by other veterans, but you're also surrounded by other people that wanted to become entrepreneurs or were already entrepreneurs. The first time you've been surrounded by entrepreneurial minded people, did you have because I had like a significant aha moment the first time I was in a room surrounded by other entrepreneurs. I was just wondering if your experience at the bunker was anything like that.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, like we were the youngest company at the bunker. There's companies there that, are year 3 or year 5 or whatever, and have done pretty well. So it was a little intimidating. But one particular bunker mate, I guess that's the term. She said, "You have your own chart. Don't be intimidated. Like you're on your own trajectory. Don't worry about the pace or the path of other people. You figure out what yours is and just be true to yourself and work hard, and you'll be fine." And that was really encouraging. I know it sounds kind of cliche or silly, but at that time, and I was still, I was transitioning out, so I was almost in uniform some days when I was going to bunker. But that was good to know that, this is my path. I need to stay true to myself, and I'll be okay. And so that was good. But yeah, there's being around other veteran entrepreneurs helps so much, just because from the beginning you can already relate and understand, same pain points and same, we all start from the same crop essentially, and so that's really good.
So that's interesting to hear that the bunker has some pretty experienced and some businesses and people that are very well along their way. Or maybe that was just the portion of the bunker you went to. Are there other parts of the bunker for those that were really more like you, where you haven't really gotten started yet?
Sure, yeah. So there's actually I'm in the DC area. Well, not today, but I live in the DC area, and so they offer. There's many sources that offer pro bono consulting. If you're trying to start a company, and I think the idea, which I didn't even know before until I took Bunker Labs, is before you want to start a company, there's a lot of research you can do to decide, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. And before I just thought, no, soldier on, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But there's things you can do. There's metrics you can apply and analysis. You can see, like, is this worth what I'm expecting to get out of it? Either if it's impact driven or profit driven, whatever it is. And so that's good. Just there's definitely pro bono. Vet Impacts is another pro bono type veteran focused company, and they can help. There's so many resources, and I can't list so many because I'm going a little blank here. But and it's just knowing where to find them. That's a difficult part sometimes, because as a civilian, I think you're just supposed to figure it out. you just figure it out. But as veterans, there's so many veterans out there, and some organizations that can support with this type of to help you out along the way as a young entrepreneur.
Vet Impacts is another organization you mentioned.
Yes. Vet Impacts is another organization. They're in the DC area. They're slowly expanding, but they work with impact-driven entrepreneurs, veteran entrepreneurs, and they focus globally too. And I'm learning from them as well. So, but I think I don't know if there's a way. There's different communities now. There's like Rally Point and different things like that, and there's the one-stop thing doesn't usually work too well. But just having an understanding for the young, whether it's junior, sergeant or young enlisted or officer, whatever it is, resource that where to start. And I think that's where the difficulty is sometimes, because you have this idea, you're passionate, but you can't find the support. And so that's why I'm really appreciative of entities like yourself that are helping to push this content, push the word out there to the veteran community. Hey, like, you have support, push your idea out, because other people are going to benefit from what you're trying to provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole reason I started the podcast. Was I had gone through the process of starting a nonprofit while I was getting my degree in entrepreneurship from Oklahoma State. And when I came out the other side, I was like, I had discovered so many great people, programs, and resources out there. And you always kind of know this stuff's out there, but you don't allow this. If you don't, it almost doesn't mean something unless you know somebody that's been through it.
Sure.
If you meet somebody that's been to the bunker, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I kind of get what the bunker is. But
no,
if you're just trolling the internet, it's kind of hard to decipher, okay, what is all this stuff and what's it mean? And, do some of them cost me money? Are they really tailored for veterans? So there's a lot of stuff to navigate out there. And that was my main motivation for starting the podcast, really, was, but I'm kind of developing a list, I may have to put together like some kind of a guide, like a resource guide on these are all the entrepreneurship programs out there that help veterans. Because there are a lot of them. There's a lot of really good ones.
Sure. And if I can support with that, I'll help you however I can. So that'd be great.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting here close to the end of our time here. I wanted to give you the last word. Do you want it to, if somebody wanted to check out your company, how would we find you?
Sure. So our website, it's a primary way to get in contact with us, but it's hethrone.co. That's HETHRONE.co. And we're available. We have a 1-800 number. All that's on the website and Twitter and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, have you actually made any money yet?
A little bit. We're making small. We're putting small fishes. There's a couple, bigger.
I was scared to ask because I thought you might say no.
No. Or a little bit, but
Well, you're really only a few months into it,
yeah, exactly.
Seriously.
January, that's when we're going fully operational. But so little things when we're, little contracts, people consulting on this or a little training here and there. So. Yeah.
Okay. And one last thing, if you're talking to that listener out there that's some type of veteran, soon to be veteran, going through the process right now, whatever, and they're looking to get started in entrepreneurship, what kind of advice would you have for them?
I would say, figure it out what it is. Don't worry too much about, all these documents for business model, things like that. There's small resources to simplify your time and really neck down what you're trying to do. Ping it off a couple people, find at least one resource, somebody that you don't know, because sometimes, people that we know are like, hey, great idea, and it's not so much the first idea that's great, but it's maybe the second or third one that comes from that first idea, and just commit to it, endure with grit, and you'll make it.
All right, Don. Well, thanks for sharing your entrepreneurial story. I look forward to your future success, especially since you're almost at the very beginning. So it sounds like you got a lot of potential and great prosperity ahead. So
appreciate it, Joe.
At some point on down the road, maybe we can have you back on the show and check back in with you and see how things are going.
Definitely, Joe. I really appreciate it. Anytime. It'd be an honor.
All right, Don. Well, that's it. That's a wrap for us. These two veterans are Oscar Mike.
All right. Roger that.
As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.